Welcome to the Killer Innovation Show, the longest continuously produced podcast in history. Each week, Phil McKinney brings you the insights and strategies to amplify your creativity and innovation skills. Here's your host, Phil McKinney.
Hello and welcome to the studio. I have a quick question for you. How do you deal with surprises? Birthday surprise, surprise getaway with your significant other, or work surprises. In my organization, we have what we call the no surprise rule. If you know something, don't hoard it, share it. No holding on information or knowledge. Let everybody know everything. Be as transparent as possible. It doesn't mean you have to have an answer for every question. That's not what this means. This means if you have knowledge, you need to make that available. Don't surprise people. But look, we will be surprised. We all get surprised, right? No matter how much we may not like it, we will all get surprised. And look, we collectively all got surprised by COVID. All kinds of signals going back years and years and years, and people pontificating that it could happen. But when it happened, let's be honest, we all got surprised. Today's topic is what can organizations do to be better prepared when the surprise hits us, specifically in your role as an innovation leader. You're leading your own either personal innovation efforts, you're leading a team, you are an executive with innovation responsibility, whatever your role is, how do you become better prepared? How do you better prepare your team and organization when the surprise hits us, especially around your innovation efforts? But before we get into today's topic, got my favorite ask: like, share, and follow. Like today's episode, share it with others who you think can benefit from it, and then follow us on social media, get connected with us. And with that, let's get into today's topic. Innovating in the face of the unexpected can stretch the strongest innovation leader. One thing we've learned during COVID is flexibility and adaptability is the name of the game. Every day waking up and not quite sure what was going to be thrown at you and how did you react. Now, this is especially true for organizations' innovation efforts. Now, we've been told over the years that even when there's turmoil, maybe an economic downturn or competitive response or competitors launching products, that when it comes to your innovation effort, you need to, 1, stay the course, 2, continue to invest, even in tough economic terms. But in response to change imposed upon us by disruptive shocks. Now, I've talked about disruptive shocks many times. You can go over to the show notes and look for the shows. There's actually a video and there's some PowerPoint slides if you're interested around disruptive shock. But what do I mean by disruptive shocks? Everything from weather, hurricanes, fires, political turmoil, and pandemics. But to respond to the changes imposed by these things, by these disruptive shocks, you need to create a new kind of capability. You need a new innovation capability. One that is called elastic innovation. So what is elastic innovation? The definition for elastic innovation is the ability to innovate on short-term, real-time, when you need to, while you're also managing still your innovation efforts on the long term. So in the case of my organization, we tend to focus our innovations on 3 to 8 years out. But in the middle of a pandemic, you're going to have to innovate in the 0 to 48 hours kind of a time frame. And that is this elastic innovation. It's about your readiness to change rather than just focus on the innovation output, your traditional established innovation KPIs. When it comes to elastic innovation, when things are being thrown at you, you in some cases don't have a choice. You have to respond. Now, I originally became aware of this concept of elastic innovation back in 2015 when someone forwarded to me what was titled as the Elastic Innovation Index. And this particular index was looking at the financial tech world. And again, this was not measured on your ability to, your innovation pipeline and how deep it was. It was about how elastic could you be when things were thrown at you, such as economic downturns, new sudden changes in policy, corruption, and having to make changes. How quick were you to change? Not so much how deep your pipeline is, but how quick you were to change. In this particular study from 2015, it was called the Elastic Innovation Index. And it has a whole series of measurements that it looks at companies based on how capable they are to be elastic when it comes to their innovation efforts. Now, more recently, a guy by the name of John Bremen wrote an article up on Forbes called Elastic Innovation, and it was related specifically to COVID. So I'm kind of combining some of their thoughts together along with my own thoughts in what we're going to talk about today. Now, elastic innovation is a new type of innovation. We've talked about incremental innovation, breakthrough innovation, disruptive innovations. Elastic innovation is a new type. It is a new type of innovation. It's an innovation capability. You need to be able to do incremental innovation. You need to do game-changing breakthrough innovations. You need to do, disruptive innovations, and you now need to be able to do elastic innovation. Now, innovating to address, when we talk about this elastic, it's innovation to address oftentimes temporary or short-term market needs. They're driven by organization survival. In the middle of COVID, what did we see? All of a sudden, restaurants shut down, could generate no revenue, right? So from a survival perspective, the restaurants had to innovate, but they had to innovate in the matter of hours and days, not quarters or annual. They had to accelerate that pace on a very, very quick response. It's also, you'll see elastic innovation play a role in growth driven by volatility. Things that are outside the control of maybe an industry. Maybe it's regulatory, or it's market perception, or it is in response of something. And then there's always the response to the disruptive shocks. These will be things like, how do you respond to hurricanes? How do you respond to earthquakes? How do you respond to fires, forest fires, like what we have here in Colorado, and you're seeing it in Northern California? How do you respond? How elastic are you that when something pops and you've got this disruptive shock impacting you, are you willing to change, or are you so ingrained in how you do your innovation that you're not willing to change? You're not willing to step in and make those quick cycles of innovation in response to the things that are outside of your control. Now, some of these changes, let's face it, will be short-lived. They live for a little bit of time and then they go away. Others, change put upon by a disruptive shock, will stay around for an extended period of time. They're going forward. Like in the case of restaurants, during COVID, the restaurants very quickly moved to mobile ordering for delivery, mobile ordering for curbside pickup. But there was this big push to create mobile apps, or enhancing the mobile apps to deal with COVID. Quite honestly, I think that's going to change. I think there's going to be even improvements into those mobile ordering apps, but I think the fundamental mobile ordering apps, that stays. But I think businesses have learned the importance of those kind of mobile digitization activities, and there will be some changes coming, but I think it's building upon that elastic innovation that occurred in the early days of COVID, and now we're seeing the long-term benefit and the effect. In fact, I can tell you from my experience, even now, is it's a lot easier to go ahead and pre-order and then pull up curbside. Back pre-COVID, very, very few restaurants had that. Now everybody has it, and it's become almost table stakes. You have to have that kind of capability. Now, elastic innovation is very unique. There's typically a clear time horizon. In the case of the elastic innovation for COVID, it's during this period that we are under the experience of COVID. And depending on where you live in the world, we are all in different stages of either having the vaccines or not having vaccines or the experiences of the COVID variants. But in the case here in the United States, life is getting back to somewhat normal and being able to go into restaurants without masks. Albeit, it's interesting from the social response perspective, people are still very, very cautious. But there's a clear time horizon. Innovating in the very, very early days of COVID, everybody was moving very, very quickly. I think things are slowing down a little bit. I think what was elastic innovation in the early days of COVID is kind of winding down, and it's kind of becoming a capability that you want to have, but not maybe as much pressure as what it was, let's say, March, April, May of 2020. It's also market focused. It's on quick execution with immediate impact. Elastic innovations is not things that you're going to do and then it's going to take you 3 years to get to market penetration or to get to adoption. It is something that you launch on Friday and you know by Monday what the response is going to be. And then you go through and you come up with something else for the next Friday and you're operating on that kind of a pace. That is elastic innovation. Elastic innovations has to have significant impact on best practices. Look, we've all got our best practices for innovation. If you've been listening to the show for any period of time, you know I'm not a big fan of the term best practices. Why? Because if I'm a consultant and I tell you, oh, I've got the best practices for innovation, and you copy them, everybody's copying the same best practices, which means it's no longer a best practice. It's the average practice. It's the practice everybody does. It's non-differentiated. So this was one of my learnings after my years in a Big Six consulting firm in the 90s is the fallacy of best practices. But look, elastic innovation has a significant impact on your practices, whether you call them best practices, standard operating procedure, your methodology, your framework, whatever term you have, elastic innovation will have an impact. Now let's talk through what some of those impacts are, because you need to plan for this. You need to be prepared to let go of, we always do innovation this way. We've always followed these steps. Nope, you have to go through a review before things get approved. You got to be willing to change when you are in the middle of an elastic innovation effort in response to some form of disruptive shock. So let's talk about the different changes to your framework, your efforts. One is the pipeline. The pipeline being is your funnel of ideas and innovation. So you're constantly feeding at the high end of the funnel, at the beginning of the pipeline, your new ideas that are coming in. Now, your pipeline, you want your pipeline to be robust. You want it to be diverse, a wide range of ideas across a wide range of your customer segments. So you're constantly looking at how to solve their problems and deliver new capabilities, etc. And you've got a managed pipeline. You've got some form of an idea management system that allows you to look at the pipeline, the number of ideas, and the ideas that are in different stages. Some in the early stage, maybe just a couple of PowerPoint slides. You may have things that have got funding approval, and you've got teams, and you're working on those types of things. Those are all part of your pipeline. So when you're in elastic innovation, what does that mean? Reality means is that ideas may jump stages. You may take an idea and not even have it go through an early evaluation process. You may drop it right into it's funded and all resources are allocated to work on this now immediately. All other work halts. You could insert these outside of normal review processes. I don't know about you, at our organization, we have idea evaluation teams. And the idea evaluation teams is a collection of people with diverse backgrounds, diverse level of expertise from across the organization that look at the ideas and help either give feedback to the team or individual who's looking for the funding around that idea, etc. And so we have a pretty, rigorous effort, and these idea evaluation teams, they meet weekly to look at all of the ideas that are in the funnel. In this case, you're an Elastic Innovation, you're bypassing your idea evaluation teams and you're saying, we're funding that. And we're putting 10 people on it. These are the 10 people, go. And it's got to be done by this date. So it can come across this, hold on, that's not our process. Hold on, that's not, In an Elastic Innovation, it's about your willingness to change. Change how you normally do it in response to the disruptive shock that you are facing. The other impact of Elastic Innovation is your people. Depending on what your culture is and how strong your innovation culture, for you to succeed in the form of Elastic Innovation, you need to have a culture that allows for a high decentralization of decision-making and resources. Look, the best ideas do not typically come from the most senior executives. I will be the first to admit this. Even when I was CTO at Hewlett-Packard, and in my role now as a CEO of an R&D and innovation lab, I am not the best source for the new ideas. So pushing it down and getting a diverse approval process. So when you're in Elastic Innovation and you've got to move quickly, how do you need to think about empowering your organization to move quickly? Make a decision, commit, be willing to take the risk of not having an idea go through the normal evaluation processes. Just approve it, fund it, and get moving. Third area that can be pretty shocking from the standpoint of your organization and your innovation efforts is the pace that you have to operate at, the acceleration that occurs in this kinds of environment of Elastic Innovation. Normally, the process and the pace is set through how you innovate. What's the approval process? How long does that normally take? What does it take to get funding approval, to get it into the budget? How long does that, and there's just these kind of normal kind of pacing activities that occur, and it kind of sets the pace for your innovation efforts. Most organizations take way too long. But in the case of an Elastic Innovation, this pace is blinding fast. It is a pace that is far accelerated beyond what your normal pace will be. Faster start, quicker movement between each phase of an innovation project. It's a fast test and launch cycle. So we're going to test it, launch. You're moving much quicker. You're driving at a pace in order to respond to these disruptive shocks. And then last is the framework. What framework are you following? You need to be willing to twist and tweak your framework. You need to be able, however, whatever the changes are, if you're going to drop a part of the framework or you're going to drop some element of your normal way you innovate, you need to, however, maintain your standards. You want to ensure quality. If your product has a safety component, you want to make sure you maintain that safety component. You want to maintain your brand reputation. So just because you're operating in a new mode for your innovation effort, you still have to ensure quality, safety, and protect the brand reputation that you have. So what are some examples? What are some examples that we saw during the whole COVID timeframe? Well, some examples here. One is perfume manufacturers. Who needed perfume when you weren't going into the office and you were locked in your homes for weeks, months on end? Well, the perfume manufacturers transformed their manufacturing systems and even reuse their bottles and everything to make hand sanitizer. So they shifted and innovated in order to create an entirely new product that leveraged their capabilities, but to satisfy the immediate need. Now, does that mean that Chanel is no longer going to make perfume? No. This is an example of a short-term effort, very specific to COVID, and now moving back to perfume now that people are getting ready to go back into hybrid offices and business meetings and trade shows and etc. The other example, we've talked about it, is restaurants. Restaurants, the mobile ordering, the ability to order your items online and then be able to do curbside pickup or use DoorDash or Uber Eats or whoever to have your meals delivered to you. But like I said, I think the restaurant hospitality industries saw the benefit of digitization. And I think we're going to see more of it. I think there's a lot of change yet to come. I think we're going to see a lot more of it. And I do not think it's going to go away. I think, the mode of being able to order, have it delivered, order at curbside, pre-order it before you get in there, those capabilities, I think, are ones that are going to stick long-term, long past COVID. The gig economy. So in the early days of COVID, being able to hire somebody to go do your grocery shopping and then actually have them deliver it and drop it off at your front door, your front stoop, particularly for those who were in the high-risk populations for severe outcomes of if they risk getting COVID. So we saw those efforts, and we saw this explosion of the gig economy. Is that going to hang around? I don't know. I think people will do digital ordering. Both my wife and daughters have gotten used to being able to order their groceries and then pull up and have the groceries put into the back of the car. It has a side benefit. They have kids, so they don't need to unbuckle kids and haul them through the grocery store. It's all ready to go, gets in the back of the car, and off they go. So I think the gig economy, people doing your shopping for you, I don't know how that's going to work out. I don't think that has a long-term stay. But online ordering and having it delivered and put into your car so you don't have to go into the store, I think that stays. And then music concerts, live events, going and listening to your favorite musician, band, comedian, whatever it is. We saw a lot during COVID where there was a lot of innovation into virtual entertainment. Bands in that doing, kitchen concerts where they would actually sit in their living room or literally their kitchen and perform for their fans. We are, however, seeing, particularly here in the United States, an absolute explosion of concerts going on. So, here in Colorado, all of the big performing venues are wide open. All the big performers are coming through town. It is insane, the number of concerts that are now on the road and in trying to get going. What's interesting is, as you know, I own a Prevost Entertainer bus. This is the same bus the rock stars use and travel around in. I have one. I have a 4-bunk model. And it's interesting because now I'm in this community and I'm talking to the bus leasing companies and their businesses, etc. One of the things that they're struggling with is they have the buses. They do not have enough bus drivers. When the concert industry shut down, all the bus drivers went off to find other jobs. And some of them said, something, I'm going to stick with this job because I'm not on the road 30 weeks a year. So I'm not coming back to being a rock band bus driver. And so one of the biggest constraints is the bus drivers for that recovery. So I think there's going to be, albeit I think live events have a certain appeal to them, I think the entertainers have found a way, though, to connect directly to their fan base. And I think virtual entertainment will have a play on a longer term basis. So will we see more disruptive shocks? Is COVID kind of a once in a generational thing and we're done? No. I think we're going to see additional kinds of things like COVID, bio impacted disruptive shocks. We'll see environmental, with flooding, fires, hurricanes, tornadoes. We're going to see those kinds of disruptive shocks, and we're going to see political. The what's on a global basis. If you look at all of the political turmoil in certain parts of the world, I think those can have a disruptive shock to businesses and industries that operate in those areas. But here's kind of the my guidance to you. So leaders such as yourself who build and maintain an elastic innovation approach, in addition to your incremental breakthrough disruptive innovation abilities, if you build and maintain an elastic innovation approach, you will be best positioned to, one, respond to multiple scenarios, hurricane, floods, pandemics, dealing with the complexity and ambiguity. That's number two. Look, coming through COVID, we didn't know a lot. Everybody was guessing. I think we did amazingly well as a society in responding to it. And I think that should give us confidence that we can react, but preparation does help. So if you have a elastic innovation approach, it allows you to deal with that complexity and deal with the ambiguity. It also allows you to balance response trade-offs, right? Early on in COVID, everybody was just throwing everything out there to see what stuck. I think a little bit of, good test methodology, testing, try this, try that, compared to your A/B testing on your ideas, I think can go a long way. But most importantly, an elastic innovation approach is you've set the model. You've told your team, you've set the mental model about react quickly. The one advice I was giving a lot of CEOs who were calling me early in COVID was be a decisive leader. Don't sit back and wait for somebody else to kind of do it and then copy what they do. You are unique. You are different. Be decisive. So, add elastic innovation to your arsenal of innovation capabilities. Do not overlook it. Add it to your capabilities. You will be thankful you did when that next disruptive shock appears. And appear it will. Thanks for joining me today here in the studio. If you want to continue the conversation, hop on over to The Innovators Community. You can find us over at theinnovators.community, and that's where we all hang out. That's where a good chunk of the listeners of the show, innovators from around the world, ranging from chief innovation officers at large multinationals all the way through even college and high school students. So hop on over to the community, be part of the conversation. If you have questions, post them there, and invite others in the community to give you advice, give you feedback, or you can give that advice also to others. Let's also connect on LinkedIn. A number of you have reached out. I started this a couple of shows ago. I used to do it quite regularly back in the early days of the show, 15 years ago, 18 years ago now. Where I invited people to connect with me on LinkedIn. More than willing to do that. Go ahead and connect, but please, in your message with the invite to connect, let me know that you are a listener, because I literally get 100 to 125 requests a week to connect. And I typically do not accept unless I know somebody, I had a meeting with them, there's some connection. So let me know that you are a listener to the show, and I will accept that LinkedIn connection request. Also, let our sponsors know that you appreciate their support. We can put out this show. I get the help I need. I take no money for doing this show and haven't for the entire, all the years since 2005, since we've been doing this show. But it helps me have a small staff who helps me get the show out. Otherwise, it's all on me, and it would become much harder for me to maintain the weekly schedule for the show. It's important that our sponsors hear that you appreciate their support for the show. So drop them a note. Would greatly appreciate it. And also, can you take a few minutes and give us a review wherever you're listening to the podcast, whether you're downloading it on iTunes or on Google, Spotify, iHeartRadio, you name it, we're everywhere. So wherever you are listening to the show, if you can post a review, let other people know what you think about the show, it helps them know about the show, find the show, and try it out. We would greatly appreciate it. Again, thank you for your time. Time is the most important asset we all have, and I greatly appreciate and value the amount of time you take each week to listen to this show, and I greatly, greatly appreciate it. We will talk to you next week. Bye-bye.
Podcasting nonstop since 2005, this has been the Killer Innovation Show on the Innovators Network.